fall like confetti in a New York parade.
Welcome everybody. Sorry, I did the wrong camera angle there. I had Scott and Rob, but welcome everybody to Scenic City Sports on this cold and dreary Wednesday evening.
Baseball weather. I told Scott
weather,
I feel so
weather.
Sorry for him, but yet he's dodged that. The teams that scheduled a ball game tonight at 5 o'clock and thinking they're going to get a good night for baseball or just a decent night.
I'll say this. When I left, I had to go to Heritage Day. We had 2 girls that had signed with Cleveland State for basketball. When I left, I had to make a stop at Office Depot, and there was patches of blue that was popping through the clouds.
So
and
you were being tricked.
I'm like, hey, this is looking pretty good. Yeah.
I said, they might be able to get it done. The time I got home and got out of the car, I'm like,
see, those are the baseball games.
There's no way I'm going out there and take a picture.
Those are the baseball games like tonight that become the most memorable, miserable games because it's not 30, but with the wind blowing,
it feels like it is.
It does feel like it, and it goes on the entire 5, 6, 7, 8 innings, whatever we're going to get
25 years ago, I'd probably be out there bundle up 5 layers taking pictures. Tonight, no sir.
We practiced yesterday, and we originally were going to play a practice round yesterday, and I was like, nah, there's too much wind to play the practice round. We'll just go hang out on the range. And I mean, down at Windstone, they've got a whole section that's covered over by tarp where they're kind of growing some grass back in and all that. And there's a lot of sand on top of that. And I'm telling you, there were 2 or 3 times when we had to turn our back to the wind because the sand was smacking us in the face.
Yep.
But, I mean, you get out there and get a few swings in. I pretty much, basically today I told all the boys, I was just like, hey, you want to go out and play, you want to get some balls in, whatever, that's on you. I am too old to go out in this cold today. It ain't that important to me today. We'll get plenty of practice time in the next couple of days. It just it is what it is. But
your first match you playing at Lafayette?
Our first match is at Lafayette on
tournament on Saturday.
No, I'm sorry. No, we are. We did. I was too late to the punch on that one to get into it. Our first match is Monday against Dade County at Trenton, and then we play Thursday against Tryon in Tryon.
Tryon's got golf.
Yeah, they got. Hey,
I would have lost that bet.
Their golf team's pretty good.
They
were
totally
state champions just
couple times at state.
Yeah,
they had
not even 10 years ago.
But you're saying there's a course down there.
Yes.
See, I lost that. Not that they don't have a golf team, that there's a golf course.
Dustin Day was on that team going to. Was it Truett McConnell that he went to?
I think so.
Yeah, and he was like 2-time individual state champion, and the team won a couple state titles with him.
And talking about Tryon, Scott, I'm going to let you take this. They have a loss down there.
Yeah, Randy Stewart, the wrestling coach, who really hadn't been down there that long, and before that, he had basically pretty much started the wrestling program down at Sonoraville. And if you remember when Sonoraville first arrived on the scene for wrestling in 08, 09, somewhere around there, they got built up into a state championship program really, really quick. I think won 3 state championships down there, and that was Randy Stewart. And Randy Stewart was he was the coach at Loris College in Iowa. Iowa,
big time wrestling.
Division III program up there, but was a big time Division III program. I'm pretty sure that's where Lee Dindy wrestled when he got out of school. I know we had a couple other kids that went up there, and I'm pretty sure had wrestled for Coach Stewart. But just
we hate
terrible,
to see losses like
terrible
that.
To hear the news. Apparently, he had a stroke and just really could not pull through it. So it's
our condolences to that family and the
that was really unexpected out of nowhere, just like this past weekend, something like that. So
I saw where you posted that.
Yeah,
I was going to let you share some information.
He was highly thought of, not just around here, but all throughout state of Georgia, and really
Well, when you can
Southeastern
go
United
somewhere and
States,
create
Midwest,
state championship material in a reasonably quick, there's something to that.
Yeah.
That didn't just happen.
Yeah, and to do it at not one program but two programs around here, which Tryon had already had a pretty good program, a state championship program before he took it over. But man, it's just tough when, like you said, it's one thing if somebody had been sick for a while, just for all of a sudden, just out of nowhere.
And people don't understand. A stroke will hit you. You don't have to be showing any kind of signs, any kind of symptoms, any kind of nothing. It's it's a lot like the kidney stuff that I went through years ago. You can just wake up one day and bam, it just kicks you right in the stomach. It's our hearts and prayers go out to everybody down there in the Tryon family. There's a lot of really good folks down there. I made friends with their golf coach a couple of years ago. Met him at one of my daughter's middle school matches, and we got to chatting, struck up a friendship, decided, hey, maybe next year we'll play you guys, and so we reached out last year when the season started, played. Of course, he was one of the first people I texted this year about, let's get together, let's play some matches, because as a coach, you want your boys to go a little bit everywhere, but you also want to play against teams that are good people, and you're going to enjoy the match, and you agree a lot with the way they coach their team and stuff, and that's the way they are down there. They have a tradition, and
they got a young guy I saw play the other night too. And I just completely just blanked on the name. I had it and completely forgot. But anyway,
is he a freshman?
No, I think he's 8th grade, maybe 7th or 8th grade.
I know exactly which kid you're talking about, because
Northrop.
Because when Lulu was a 8th grader, he was a 6th grader, and I remember, I kid about it.
So he's in 8th grade this year.
He's in 8th grade this year, and I remember, I kid about it, but I remember talking to his parents. He sure would look good in red.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Well, he shot 39.
Good little golfer.
39 the other day at Lafayette for 9 holes, and it wasn't ideal conditions. It was a little cool, a little breezy at times, and
Listen, anything under 40 in high school golf, anything under 45 is stout.
Oh yeah.
You got, I've got 3 right now that are shooting, 42 and below, and I'm quite content with that. And I have a 4th that when he gets out will be shooting probably a little below that. So I'm.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention he did not get low medalist that day either, because the little girl at Saddle Ridge, Lila Selectlia, broke her own school record with 38.
Wow. That's
she's a player now.
That's stout.
This past summer, she was in one of the Chattanooga Junior events, the championship over at Moccasin Bend, and shot 71. As a 7th grader.
And we've said it so many times.
Rising 8th
and
grade.
Golf's just a tremendous example of that, in my opinion. The kids that get involved in whatever the sports they get involved in at such an early age, if they've got the abilities, the God-given abilities to play whatever sport they're at, that's why they look so tremendous as 6th graders, as Rusty's talking about. Now an 8th grader you're talking about, because they've been playing that game a long time.
Yeah.
Rusty can hand those clubs to somebody that maybe looks to be gifted as more of an athlete, but they hadn't played that game, and it'll come so difficult to them for a while.
That's why it's so
just like
frustrating.
That
That's why it's so frustrating.
Golf is the weirdest sport, though. There are people that it doesn't matter how much time you spend with them. It doesn't matter how many tweaks you try and make here and there. There are some people's bodies that just cannot learn the golf swing. It is, they'll develop something that is serviceable, and they'll go out there and they'll play and they'll have a good time.
Right.
But they're never going to be good.
Right. And
reach that full potential.
And then there's other people that just, you put a club in their hand and it's like, oh, okay.
Well,
and they just take right to it.
Rolling back to some of the legends in golf that were professional, some of them had some of the most amazing swings, and some of them didn't quite have the prettiest of all swings. But it's about scoring. That swing doesn't. Arnold Palmer's swing was not as classic of a swing as some others, right?
Steelworkers charm, Arnold Palmer.
But there again,
No,
he was a.
I'll give
Lee
you-
Trevino's another
I was
one.
going to say
Yeah.
right off the top of my head, the two that come to mind first are Trevino and Palmer.
Yeah.
Both look like they're trying to murder the ball with the golf club, and neither one of them had a very gracious backswing or anything. And then on the other side of that is a guy like Ernie Els. Ernie Els is 6 foot tall and looks like he's barely moving the club when he swings it, but the prettiest swing path there is, and just bash it.
And they called him Boom Boom.
Fred Couples.
His swing and his effort
easy, hit hard.
allows him to say
It's mechanics.
that guy at 75
Yes.
can still play.
Oh,
because everything he does is with such ease to
Yeah.
it.
I read something about him yesterday on Facebook, and they were talking something about why he didn't wear gloves, and he
you
said,
literally took the words out of my
"Yeah."
mouth.
He said, "My parents gave me $5 a day for golf."
Where he's from up in Seattle.
Yeah, he said gloves were $8.
We can get to play.
Yeah.
He said, so I
either-
started, wearing holes in the gloves, and the parents are like, "Okay, you're gonna have to do something."
Either you play golf or we get you a glove.
And so he just said, "I just started
Yeah.
taking them off." That way, it doesn't keep ruining a pair of gloves. That's the way I am, though, man. I'll go through a
You
pair.
will, because Scott wears 2 because he grips.
Well,
you
I've cut down on one unless I start getting blisters.
Yeah.
But yeah.
but
The
golf.
last
is,
time we played, I didn't
gonna
swing.
say,
I didn't
you don't swing as hard.
overswing, and I played much better.
It goes back to you can. I mean, and they're opposite swings. I mean, baseball and golf are 2 completely different swings, but mechanically they're a lot the same. You go back and you watch a guy like King Griffey Jr. swing. And Griffey Jr. never looked like he was really swinging that hard. Everything with him was natural and motion. It wasn't because he was the strongest athlete or anything. He just had the prettiest swing that you could possibly have. And it just goes to show that technique, like I preach to my boys all the time, there's a reason you carry 14 clubs in the bag. It does not matter what you hit. As far as distance-wise, I don't care what you hit each of those clubs as long as you can hit them straight.
Yeah.
And that's plain and simple. And we're in the middle, now we're in
It's
golf
kind of the
season.
same way with the golf swing. Is like, yes, there's certain things you need to do and have a good golf swing. But if somebody is swinging and hitting it right down the middle and hitting them straight,
Who cares?
with this weird
you
looking-
don't mess it. You
I'm
don't
not
mess with
touching
it.
that.
I mean, it goes back to that whole thing of, I heard this explained one time. They took it and they showed Jim Furyk's swing. They showed Sergio Garcia's, and they showed, I think it was like Brad Faxon or somebody like that. They showed like 3-4 guys. And what those 3 guys had nothing in common, from address to the top of their swing. But from downswing to impact, they were identical. You could just about lay them on top of one another. Because somehow they got the club head back on path where it needed to be, and they made great
obviously,
contact.
we talked about Trevino and Palmer a long time ago, but obviously they were able to accomplish that too. And that final descent, as I would
That's
call
what
it,
it
to the
matters.
ball, that's what matters.
Look at Furyk. Look at Jim Furyk. I mean, that dude looks like he's got rubber band arms.
got
And
that
he hits it great.
figure eight thing at the top.
I mean, he hits it wonderfully. Has for years and years and years. It's all technique. The problem that golfers face in the modern world is a lot like what they face in other sports. Golfers watch television and they see the best players in the world and they think, well, that ain't that hard. I can do that. And they don't understand they can't do that. There are things that those men do. I sent my team out this past week, and I've talked about it on this show before, but I sent them out the video of Phil Mickelson's interview on David Faraday's interview show, where he talks about his thought process of why he hits a wedge when he hits it. And to listen to him explain for literally 7 minutes as to what goes through his head before every shot, it's amazing. I mean, and it's no amateur golfer does that. And amateurs watch television and they see Rory McIlroy and how his swing works for him, and they think, well, that'll work for me. No, it won't. It works for Rory because that's Rory's swing.
Yeah.
Scott's swing works for Scott. Rusty's swing works for Rusty. Everybody's swing works for themselves. And until people can grasp that, you work with what you've been given. You can learn some basic mechanics, but you work with what God has handed you.
Did you see this? And I'm going to ask you this because I think this may be a trend. Kefka is wanting to come back after the 2025 season that he's locked into with Live Golf. He's wanting to come back to the PGA. His contract was for $100 million. Okay. Do you think that some of those golfers that went out there and got those contracts are going to be like him and want to come back now that they made so much money?
Of course they will. I mean,
and how does Live Golf continue to survive? Just looking for the next group of folks that hadn't made that kind of money yet.
Live Golf has that Saudi money. They ain't going to run out of money. I mean,
how do they continue to grow their game?
Like you just said, they go after the kid right out of college. They go after the kid that, the person that comes to mind right now, that God only knows what the kid's going to be offered. Can you imagine the amount of money that'll be thrown at Charlie Woods just because he's Charlie Woods? Now, don't get me wrong, he's quite the player himself, but that kid's going to have obscene amounts of money tossed in him. And I mean, we said it 3-4 years ago when these guys all first signed those deals. Why would you not?
Yeah,
if you're 28 years old and somebody's going, here, Scott, here's $350 million to come and play with us for 4 years. Okay.
I think what they're realizing, too, is, and even though they've got that environment over there themselves of what they play in, but it's just so distant to the United States as far as keeping up with it, because we still got the PGA tournaments week in, week out, and we're starting to see new names because all those guys ran off for the money.
Yeah,
and it is good that we see those new names.
Yeah, it is.
It really is. But there's going to be an influx maybe of those guys. His contract runs out after this year, so next year, I guess you just say adios and come back to the PGA.
What I like is what I like about
they let him.
Yeah,
let him.
I think. I mean, they ain't got no choice now because they're merged.
Yeah, well.
So I mean, and I look at it like, the PGA has always been that sport where you go out there and if you don't compete at a certain level, you don't take home a paycheck. Well, 25, 30 years ago, when the money was where it was then, you could go out there as a traveling pro and you could scratch out a living because you could stay at cheap motels because nobody knew who you were because the PGA Tour wasn't that popular.
Right.
Nowadays, the kind of money that the tournament venues, the organization, everything are making, every golfer that walks out there on that course, if they qualify for that tournament, should walk away with something. Even if it's a couple of $1,000s, that's enough to get you to the next town, you should walk away with something. Okay. That's why these guys ran for, it's why a lot of these guys went, well, why am I not going to go take this $350 million? Because literally, unless I go out there and win, I'm not offered a dime. Right. We've all watched PGA Tour Full Swing on Netflix. I mean, you see
season's out by the way.
Exactly. Well, so is Drive to Survive comes out on Friday. But you take a guy like Tony Finau. A couple of years ago, he wins 2 tournaments, and those 2 tournament wins paid him almost $4 million. Well, for most people, that's more money than you're ever going to need in a lifetime. But for a professional golfer, when you figure they can't stay in a Super 8 because everybody's going to know who they are in this modern era, so they've got to have the security. They got to stay somewhere where they can get that extra bit of security. So you're talking about motels that are $1,000 a night, $1,500 a night. You've got to travel to the next place,
or you got to rent a house.
You got to rent a house, and that's a chunk. Yeah. You got to rent it unless you're driving your own vehicle. You've got to have something to drive while you're there. I mean, you could do it old school if you just didn't care, but
those are the points Rusty's making are valid in that.
And some of those guys, even the ones that were taking like $4 million or $5 million to come over, because look,
that's guaranteed money.
That's guaranteed money, and I've been on the tour for 6 years, and I've made about 1.3 total, and most of that's gone.
Right. Yeah, and the thing about it is the people on the outside, the fans, they look at that and they go, well, golly, in the last 4 years, Scott Herbst made $3.2 million. Well, they don't realize that, Scott laid out what his bottom line was for those 4 years of all his travel and his expenses. I would say out of that $3.2 million, he might have pocketed $300,000 maybe, because he's got to pay, you take $3.2 million, well, hell, taxes is going to take 40% of it right off the top.
Yeah.
And then, you're going from there.
And I know some people are going to say, well, don't they get their clothes and their equipment
Not
and
always.
stuff like that? Maybe, maybe not. But you're also paying a caddy. You're also paying a strength coach, and you're also paying a golf coach, and probably maybe a bodyguard, maybe a driver, maybe a chef. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that comes with it now that the money's got to come from somewhere.
Most caddies make somewhere between 6 and 9% per year, plus a percentage of, or they make 6 to 9%. Unless you get a tournament win, and then if you win an event, it bumps to like 10 or 11, something like that. So you take a guy, take like Tony Finau, okay? He's fresh on my mind because I just talked about him. He won 2 tournaments that 1 year. So let's say that he's got a good caddy, and he pays that caddy commensurate to what everybody else says. We'll leave it at easy math and say that he pays the guy 10% for a win. So he makes $1.4 million for that tournament. His caddy right off the top, that's $140,000. Now, then he's got to pay the taxes. So that's another probably, what you figure, $350,000. So you basically, out of that 1.4, you've already lost almost $500,000 right off the bat. Yeah. So you're down to $800,000 for that win. Take out probably $15,000 to $20,000 worth of expenses for the week.
And it doesn't. There's
and
things
you got to make that last.
Yeah, those things. There are
because
things
you don't know if you're going to win next week, and then you got bills at home that have to be paid out of that money.
And we talk about. They talked about it last year. Scotty and his amazing year, and what his caddy made was many times more than a lot of the golfers were making.
That guy probably made 8 figures last year.
Look at what Steve Williams made all those years with Tiger.
Yeah,
I mean. He was making double-digit millions every year just being a caddy.
Just hooking up with the right golfer for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, if you strike while the iron's hot and you get one of those guys, I mean, you think about Jim McKay, Bones, Phil's caddy. How much money's that guy made over the years? Lots. Because Phil's way up on the list. But that goes back to the point of why would those guys take the money? Because it's there. It's right there in front of them.
They don't have to qualify to win anything.
Nope.
They don't have to win anything.
Listen, here's $4 million. I need you to come over here and play in 8 events, and then you still may win winnings in those 8 events.
And even if you don't win a thing, if you finish dead last, you're still probably going to make $50,000.
You're still going to make $50,000 just for showing up.
Okay, changing the subject for a moment. Last pay-per-view prior to WrestleMania? Or we got one more in between it?
Well, we had what we didn't think was ever going to happen this past week, and it is the John Cena heel turn.
I loved it.
What do you think about that? The 17 years, I mean, how many years he did WWE, never once played the other role, right?
No, he was a bad guy for a short time.
Was he?
The Thugonomics and all that.
Okay.
To start with, but not. But he was kind of the.
He's looking for an identity back in those days.
He was.
He was an a-hole. An a-hole heel.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is like evil John Cena heel. This is something we've never seen before, and I
orchestrated by The Rock, orchestrated by Triple H.
Scott.
And I watched the clips of that the other night, and I applauded. I was like,
so did you see it coming?
No, I did not
think you saw it coming.
I had read a couple things that
I'm not surprised
because I had heard him say that he would like to have one more good heel run because he was talking about. It was just a few years ago they had said something to him about it, and he had gone out and recorded a new entrance song. He had already bought all new ring gear, and he had everything ready. And they changed their mind last minute. We're like, nah, we're just going to stay with what you've been doing. And he was like, okay. But he had already, there was a rumor they were going to let him bring back for a short time. He was going to come back as the prototype John Cena, but he was going to be a heel.
I wasn't fooled by Cody's decision. I think that was kind of, and I wasn't totally fooled by Rock having to become the bad guy, and he did. I didn't know we were going to incorporate Cena.
Yeah.
And again, do you think? I said it to myself in 2 different ways. This is his last hurrah. You can't hand the belt to him. Then I thought, well, no, Rusty. And then I thought, are we fixing to hand 17 off?
No,
just to say we did it?
I think what I love, me and my daughter were talking about this the other day, and she's
You don't think it's possible to hand 17th
No.
off? Okay.
And she's quite the little wrestling her story and herself. But we were talking about it, and what our consensus is number one, it is awesome that WWE is trusting Cody enough to put him in this match. And first off, I didn't think he would ever go all the way WrestleMania to WrestleMania as the champ. I thought they'd give him 6 months or so because they'd try to get it back on Roman as soon as possible.
I thought they'd give him at least a year.
But then they realized that Roman is, in this day and age now, Roman has reached the stage that he doesn't have to be the champ to be as popular as he is. Cody has done an awesome job. The fans adore him. And I think what this says to me is, you put him against Cena, you know Cody's going to win this match, and you're maybe setting up to let him hold it for another. You may give him another year now, because he's shown that he can put the butts in the seats.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big. And the bad part about that is, what that says to me in a lot of ways is, I just want to call Tony Khan and AEW up and be like, what in the hell were you thinking?
Well, listen, let me say that. Let me flip to that side. There's a novice. Yes, we know they got money. They got Depot, but they're a novice in the business, and that's why those mistakes are being made. They're a novice in the business.
Cody and MJF going back and forth for a couple of years, the way they've let, like what they're doing right now with Hangman Page and Moxley. I mean, they really missed an opportunity there for that to have been huge.
Well, let me ask you a question about Moxley's role over where he's at. I think the writing for him is slim to none.
I agree.
And I think he'd have been better off maybe staying where he was, because if the two that he was partners with have gone on to have the runs they've had and be the guy in the organization, I don't think they'd have left him out. But he's over there in this little mob situation that just goes on and on and on. Same thing every week.
Nobody likes that storyline.
I just don't like.
Nobody.
His whole shtick is just.
He needs to undo that and do something different.
Yeah. It gets into that whole thing of like, I think back, and for those of you out there that have the WWE Network will know what I'm about to say, probably because you probably watched it too. I think all the way back to about 3 years ago, when he was still operating as Dean Ambrose, and he goes on the Stone Cold podcast.
Yeah.
And if you've never watched the Stone Cold podcast, it's awesome. It's just Steve Austin talking to wrestlers about the business. There's nobody comes on in character. Everybody is just themselves. Mm-hmm. It's great. Well, Dean Ambrose came on as Dean Ambrose. He did not come on as Jonathan Good. He came on as his character, and he walked in there with this big-ass chip on his shoulder, and the entire interview, every time Stone Cold tried to talk to him, he more or less spit answers back at him. He wasn't engaging. He wasn't entertaining at all, and the whole time I was just thinking, if this is the best this guy's got, how is this guy ever going to be one of the guys? And that's the thing is you want to put the title on him and let him be that voiceless dude at the head of the mob and bring in his minions every now and again. Fine. Stop handing him the microphone, because he's terrible on it.
Yeah.
I mean, you got guys in that company that are gold on the microphone.
Yeah.
I mean, MJF is unreal. Hangman Page is great. Kenny Omega, great. The Bucks, great.
Yeah,
he doesn't has showed he's great.
He doesn't have much to say.
No,
he's got those 3 or 4 sentences,
and it's tired.
It's
tired now.
I think he's buried himself into a role that he needs to get out of if he's going to be looked
Speaking
upon.
of saying things on the mic, what did you make of what Cody said to The Rock?
I did
off the air.
I'm gonna be honest.
No.
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't see
off
it.
The air?
That was not.
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't see it.
And even if it was off the air, it was said out loud.
What did he say
to the entire arena over the microphone?
Did he? Well, I mean,
yeah,
everybody there heard it, and it's able to be repeated back.
You're in the Netflix era.
Yeah, but you're also talking about a child's fan favorite.
Yeah.
And I understand. Not every kid lives a sheltered life, and some of those kids are saying those same words. But
I'm gonna
is
tell
that what you want your champion?
No, it is not. But I'm gonna add to that a little bit like this. I love wrestling, have loved it most of my life, but I don't like this new Netflix era of wrestling because you know what?
And don't you think that's they've done this for dollars, of course, but
yes.
I think for this liberalism to take place, if they want it to,
yes.
such as language like that.
But my issue with it has nothing to do with the content. What I don't like about it is I've always liked over the years, if I didn't feel like watching everything Monday Night Raw, I could flip it over and watch something else and easily flip back and catch up. You know, if it's a match that I'm not enjoying, I'll just flip over and watch something else for a few minutes, flip back, watch the next interview, whatever. Now, because of the way smart TVs are put together and stuff like that,
you can't do that.
You can't do that. You're literally logging back into Netflix to watch, or either you commit to watching.
Well, that's by design too, then maybe.
Right, and that's what I don't
You
like.
can go back and forth, but it takes a little bit longer.
You have taken away a comfort that a lot of people probably have.
They're testing that on Monday night to see whether they do it on Friday night, probably.
I think so too, and I also think honestly I think that there are a lot of other networks out there watching this experiment, thinking, can I do this with the NFL? Oh. Can I do this with Major League Baseball? Can I do this with it's so funny to me. Because what we are basically doing is reinventing cable TV.
Yeah.
I mean, you're basically, before it's over with, you're going to log into Netflix or you're going to log into Hulu, and they're going to be like, oh, yeah, come to Hulu. We have ABC, NBC, Fox News, and MSNBC all right here together. Okay, my Direct TV has all those. My Comcast had all that. Mm-hmm. You're just reinventing cable.
Yeah, but just at a cheaper price. And I know a lot of the NFL fans, because this past playoffs, well, this playoff game is going to be an Amazon exclusive, and this one's going to be on Peacock. And I read a bunch of comments on Facebook, and they're like,
"Oh, people are hating it."
I just want to watch a playoff game.
And some of those Thursday night games get lost too, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, because they're on Prime.
Yeah, they're on Amazon Prime, which I had for a little while, and I watched some of those games, but I haven't renewed it.
And let's be real honest,
the games suck.
I was gonna say 9 out of 10 times those Thursday night games are garbage.
You get
not
done
because
playing,
the teams are bad, but I mean they're
the players are not in any shape to play.
No.
I mean, you play Sunday, you give them Monday, Tuesday off, and then one day of practice Wednesday. Hey, we're gonna play a game on Thursday.
Throughout the years,
terrible.
What people don't think about is the fact that most of the teams that have always played on Thanksgiving Day typically have a bye the week before Thanksgiving, so they can get ready for that game, so that those games are are the spectacle they are supposed to be.
Yeah.
They didn't think about the fact of, well, if we try to do this every week, it'll be great. Well, not really. Not if you make that team play on Sunday.
Every once in a while, you get a good game, and most of the games are close, and they're close because both teams are wore out.
Yeah, both of them playing poorly.
I mean, was it the San Francisco Rams game this year? Was like 12-6 with 6 field goals. And nobody could score a touchdown.
That's literally like watching paint dry.
Oh, it was terrible.
And I don't know if they do this or not, Scott. So you have to help me with the NFL scheduling. Do they ever set up a team so bad that they played on Sunday, they got to play on Thursday, and then somebody else has had a bye, and they're getting them?
No,
they ever do that?
Unless something has changed. It's a couple. It's a man and a wife that literally put the entire NFL schedule together.
They've been doing it for 20-something years. Yeah.
But there's a formula to it.
And it's just randomly generated.
If you win your division, you play all the other division winners in the conference, and then they switch, and then you play one division in the other conference.
Okay, yeah.
And then it's like a percentage, and then you have your home and away.
You can usually predict
stuff.
What your team's schedule is going to be the upcoming season.
Yeah, it's
based
real
on
easy.
how you landed.
But if you know the rotation, you can predict it all the way down to what are your 2 or 3 at-large games, pretty much.
Yeah.
because
the Titans have a contest every
Yeah.
year. So like pick the schedule.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not that hard to
No,
figure
it's
out.
really not. Not if you can go back and look at the last 3-4 years and pretty much guess who your opponents are going to be. And there's always going to be those at-large games that they wanted. Like back in the day, they always wanted Dallas and San Francisco to play each other because they were the playoff contenders.
Yeah.
Nowadays you always want Buffalo and Kansas City to play each other every year because they're two of the best teams on the AFC side.
Big rivalry now.
I just hate that it's gone to this because I'm going to tell y'all the truth. I've not watched Raw in weeks
Well, I haven't either.
because I number one, I forget that it's on. I never see a commercial. Whereas used to, I would see a commercial. I'd be watching
I'm hoping they
on E. And
I'm hoping they give up on their experiment and come
I am
back.
too. I don't like it. I don't like it a bit. And I know that sounds like I'm shouting at the raindrops, but I just don't.
The problem might be that there's the me and you and Scots of the world, but then there might be 1,000 somebody else's.
Well,
That's the greatest thing they ever did.
In this modern era of I want it when I want it, a lot of people, they don't watch it on Monday night, but they go back the next day at work and they listen to it in their headphones while they're working. Or they watch it, they work nights and they watch it in the afternoon. I think there are people out there that probably love it because of the ease at which they can just turn it on and watch it, even if it's the next day. I think there's a lot of people that probably love that part of it. But, for those of us that are the traditional media consumers, we still grew up in an era where every Monday night at 9 o'clock, it's Monday Night Football. And I want to watch Monday Night Football, not on ESPN. I want it on ABC. I want to be able to turn on, if all I've got is a black and white TV, I want to be able to turn that dial to 9 and watch my black and white Monday Night Football.
Well, I think I saw where MLB is leaving ESPN, and in a way I don't think ESPN did a good job with MLB. And I'll give you a good example. I am a little bit biased when it comes to baseball and football, but I have seen many of daytime programming go on at ESPN where we want to talk about game number 77 in the NBA and opening day with MLB doesn't get mentioned. And there's something wrong with that, and then you're going to back up about 3 shows of the same thing.
Baseball Tonight doesn't exist anymore on ESPN. The only baseball you see is the Sunday night baseball game. That's it. There's no other program.
You used to have a baseball game just about every night.
So if I'm MLB, I pull away from it too. I say, listen,
Yeah.
if you're going to treat me like the third, fourth sister in this family, then I'll just move on and find somebody.
I do not want to give credit to that person, but I will give credit to that person. That's but the only decent thing he's done as commissioner of baseball.
Well, and you never know. They might have had a bunch of people in his ear said, "Listen, we
But
don't."
see,
I'm sure
But
they
see,
probably had to tell him.
here's my problem with MLB, though. MLB has its own streaming service. Okay? I'd pay the same thing I pay for Netflix. $9.99, $10.99, whatever it is a month. I would pay the exact same amount to MLB if I could sit down every night and watch the Braves. Every night.
Yeah.
$10 a month, I'm in. But MLB don't want me to do that. They don't even give me the option to pay monthly. I have to pay $150 for the whole season in one fell swoop. I can't pay it.
Not knowing the schedule.
Not knowing what the schedule is, not knowing what the nights are. I have to pay it in one payment, $150.
That'd be an easy fix on their part if they wanted to.
It's simple. And how much money would they make?
It would make a whole lot more.
Yeah, they run off people by just
because there's a whole lot of husbands out there that can ask for the forgiveness of $10 a month a whole lot easier than they can of the $150 at one time.
And here comes the other part of that equation that you just mentioned. I'm the same way. I want to see the Braves. They've come off TV,
right?
And I can't imagine why it's so daggum difficult on their end to organize somebody that'll put them back on there.
Yep.
And it tells me, because Atlanta's not a city team. That's a regional
It's a regional
program.
team.
They got people in the Carolinas and the Mississippis and the Tennessees that watch them.
You got people all the way down to damn Miami that
and
are,
you
that
just
are
and you just
Braves
cut them out of the
fans.
system. I don't understand why
they came
like that.
over and win 66. That was the only team in the Southeast. I mean, you had to go over
All the
to
way
like
until
Baltimore on this side and maybe Texas Rangers, Houston on this side.
The Braves.
Everything else, there was no other teams.
The Braves were the only thing going until the Marlins came along.
93.
Yeah, I mean,
Tampa 5 years after that.
Yeah, I mean, that part sucks because I want to be able to watch them, but I mean, for MLB, it's like, my God, man, you can't. I mean, is my $10 a month not? I mean, can I not take that $150 and separate it out over 12 months and pay you, $11 a month?
I grew up.
I'd do that gladly.
I grew up in a time when I was a very youngster. The Saturday game with Joe
Garagiola.
It was Yankees and whoever they wanted to put against.
Yeah.
But it was the Yankees. They almost could have divided up and played the A B Yankees and the B team Yankees. That way, what we
Back
got.
in those days.
So we knew the lineup with the Yankees at all times.
I remember the Braves were on one time on the black and white television you're talking about. You know why? Because they were playing Pete Rose, who was in the middle of a 44-game hitting streak.
Yep.
It was 1977.
Speaking of, I did see yesterday that Rob Manfred and Major League Baseball's board of directors have basically started to move the process forward to forgive.
And
Pete
how many
Rose
times did we say that after death?
Oh, we said we
said
would.
it after death.
Yeah,
but not prior to.
We knew it was going to happen, but it's still.
It stings, but I mean, I'm glad to see that at least, and there's no doubt in my mind that, I mean, well, I say that, but I do think he'll get in.
Yeah.
I mean,
I do too.
I do think there's enough riders. I think and I also think if he gets in,
that opens the door.
I was going to say the good thing that's going to come out of this.
It opens the door for the rest.
If you let Pete in, it's going to open it up for all the other ones, and everybody's going to go. Well, you know what? I voted for Pete Rose last year. I'm going to vote for Barry Bonds this year.
I still say this, and the two that come to mind the most, and there may be a dark horse there that I'm not thinking about, and there probably is, and somebody that's bitter about the whole situation. But boy, they better have a dump mic when Bonds and Clemens get up there and talk, because they may not come off as what you think they're coming off as. You might
just offer Clemens a little bit extra just to not speak.
Yeah, because they may not say nice things.
He will not hold his tongue.
Well,
I think Barry will go up there and be diplomatic. I really do.
Yeah, I think he's trying to change his image a little bit.
I think Barry has softened in his older age, but I don't think Clemens gives a you-know-what. He'll go up there.
They better be careful.
The following people can kiss my butt.
And there may be some dark horses that are included in that group that's been done wrong too, Scott, by all this crazy voting, that they may be even as bitter that we just don't know about it.
Well, yeah. I do want to tell Scott something, ask Scott something, see what his opinion of this is, because it when y'all said Barry Bonds, it made me think of it immediately. So Ken Golden, the king of collectibles, that has the show on Netflix and everything. I follow them on all social media because it shows what they've got up for auction and stuff. And some of it's pretty cool. Like they had a Paul Skeen rosin bag the other day from his first start. Some stuff like that. And y'all saying Bonds made me think of it because he's been one of the ones active in trying to get Bonds' image rehabbed and getting his stuff out there. So somebody on there the other day, the item that they had up for auction, 1977 Star Wars collectible cards, an uncut sheet. The full size of a 2x, of a piece of plywood, an uncut sheet.
To copy The Rock.
Of Star Wars, the chills. Yeah, an uncut sheet.
CM Punk says that Rock's lying.
And I'm like, now that is, what is that worth? I mean, with Star Wars collectibles,
depending on the right person.
Knowing what Star Wars fans are willing to.
Do we know how much it went for?
Oh no, it's still
out
actively
there?
Up for auction right now. I do know, y'all know I'm a big Kennedy guy. I do know they just had an auction. This one wasn't golden. This was Sotheby's or one of them, I think. And a pair of Kennedy's boxer shorts went for $7,000.
Just keep thinking about the golf club episode.
Yeah, I know. I didn't realize the president had such a temper. Yep. I mean, but yeah, an uncut sheet. Yeah, I mean, I got to thinking about it.
Now, hold on a minute. When we're talking about a sheet,
that's six
we
figures.
mean the cards themselves, the entire set of the cards. All together, the cards have not been cut out individually. Well, so it is an uncut sheet of the cards.
How does that
survive that long?
48 years.
That's what I thought. It's like, how in the world? Where did that? Well, I'll tell you one that I heard of the other day.
And is it authentic? I'm sure it is.
Y'all know I'm a big bourbon Scotch guy. So Macallan Scotch, which is Scottish, obviously. Yeah. A few years ago, they cleaned out one of their rack houses and they found a barrel that was 60 years old. And they did a bunch of, really cool things. You got like a Waterford crystal decanter. There was this fancy wooden box that came in. The retail on those bottles were like $65,000, and they were going at private auction for as high as $150 and $180. Mm-hmm. Well, they found another barrel in another one of the rack houses, and this one is 81 years old. So what you have to remember is an average barrel of whiskey and bourbon usually yields, if you let it age for the 5 to 7 years minimum, it yields about yields about I think it's 350 milliliter bottles. Mm-hmm. You have to factor in the evaporation process. Yeah. But that barrel of Macallan aged for 81 years, so you figure that you might get 50 bottles.
I was about to say less than half.
And those are the only 50 bottles of that's ever going to be available, because they're never going to think to do it again. And I was hearing already that the retail on it, just the retail, the suggested was $180,000. And they were saying who knows what it could pull at public auction.
Quarter million easily.
Oh, very, very much so.
And you got to think, they're probably thinking right now, is like, okay, save a couple of these extra barrels. We're just going to hide them.
Who Rusty? Obviously, big pockets, but what industry wants that? That's not necessarily a restaurant industry saying I want that. Do it.
Unless you've got, I'm thinking like
royalty.
Yeah, that
and stored away,
or I'm thinking like absolute top shelf restaurants, like 5 stars. What is it, Zagat? Is that the one? Like Michelin stars. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking, whatever the number 1, number 2, maybe top 5 restaurants in America.
Because that's gonna be an expensive glass.
Oh my God, man! I mean, you think about it. If they pay, even if they got somebody to get it for them, even at public auction, they're probably paying. That bottle at something like that probably goes for no less than $300,000 or $400,000 by the time it's all said and done.
But it doesn't have to be sold quickly either.
No, you can sell it glass at a time. And you're selling a 2-ounce pour, and you're probably talking $1,500 to $2,000 for a pour.
Oh, probably more than that. If you're paying $300,000 or $400,000 for a bottle, you're probably talking $25,000.
I mean, Louis the 14th.
We're not thinking the dollhouse down on Fort Lauderdale.
No,
we're not
thinking
of them.
Definitely no. I mean,
I'm thinking of them, but
I mean, a 2-ounce pour of Louis the 14th. If you can find, if you go somewhere that has Louis the 14th, the 2-ounce pour of that is $750, and that's just a stock bottle. A 2-ounce pour of Pappy Van Winkle, if you can happen to find it somewhere, is somewhere around $350 to $500. For Old Rip, which is the 10-year. If you can find
if you've
Pappy,
got that kind of money
more
invested in that somewhere, Rusty, you got to have some kind of protective system that a fire don't take it out.
Most of those places like that, like I know when we went to Maker's Mark, they had a section at Maker's Mark that was some of their lineage bourbon. So they had original bottles of a lot of stuff that they've done over the years. And that room had one of those systems to where if they hit the button, it sucks all the oxygen out of that room like that fast. So any fire is gone.
You'd have a hard time insuring that.
Oh, Lord,
but I doubt you're going to see a restaurant bid on one of those.
So I'm thinking royalty.
I'm
thinking, or Saudi, like you was talking about earlier.
These are going to be private collectors with more money than they know what to do with.
They know what to do with.
And they just want it for
just to say they got it.
Just so I can have it. It's like the Superman, number 1.
Oh, yeah.
I heard them, they were talking, why do you want it? Just because I don't have it?
Because I don't have it, yeah.
And that's why he wants it. And I'll pay $3-4 million.
And there's only like 15 of those left in circulation that everybody knows of, and none of them are rated. There's not one rated above a 6. Yeah. I've never found one higher than a 6 rating. Like the Honus Wagner. In one of the last episodes last season of King of Collectibles, a guy has a Honus Wagner that they got a hold of, and it wound up being rated a 9, I think it was, or an 8.5 or a 9 on the scale. And the guy from Golden come walking in there with a duffel bag and laid, was it $2 million or $10 million?
It was. I think it was 2, and it was kind of like a down payment.
He laid $2 million in cash in a duffel bag on the guy's desk to get him to let him consign it.
Yeah.
Because he knew that one card would probably yield 40 or 50. It'll be the highest baseball card ever.
I mean, there was a Hannes. We're talking about the T208.
Yeah. Hannes Wagner.
There was a card not too long ago came up, and it wasn't even complete. It was ripped in half, and it still got 6 figures.
Well, I mean, if you've got
and that card is because it's the rarest of rare, and it's just like a car show going through.
Yeah.
You know, the ones, not necessarily the prettiest card, not necessarily one it's the rarest of cars that get the price. Who is that ball player that had an amazing run in his career that you see being that next card that somebody just has to have, Scott? Is there
Ohtani?
Ohtani's probably in you talking about current player. Ohtani's probably one of those guys.
And I'll ask you this question: did you see the wide receiver cornerback for
Travis Hunter?
He has made mention that what he would do in the NFL, playing both positions, is tougher than Ohtani having to pitch and hit.
Absolutely no way.
Your thought?
No.
Both those spots that he's talking about are
physically is exerting more energy. Yeah, probably. You know, because baseball players don't get winded.
As a wide receiver or a defensive back, you are playing realistically the same position. Both sides, you're trying to get to the ball.
And there's been people that I think could have been allowed to do that.
Oh yeah,
they just chose as a team not to do that.
But as what Ohtani does,
you don't want to take a chance on getting your best cornerback hurt.
That's right. Either way.
But with Ohtani, you have a all-star, all-pro level slugger. And then can walk out there and be a 20-game winner as a pitcher.
He won't pitch enough to be
insane.
Be considered a Hall of Fame pitcher. He won't pitch enough for that. He'll go in as a hitter. But I think if he wasn't a hitter, he could have been a Hall of Fame pitcher.
He absolutely could have been if that's all he's doing.
If that's all he was doing.
Yeah.
And speaking of cards, they have Topps has now come out. It's the Rock, John Cena, Travis Scott.
I saw that. I did see
autographed.
that. I did see that.
They got the picture on the front from the other night.
I just think that like Rob was asking about modern players, the thing that hits me a little bit with all that is I just don't know that collectibles are going to stay. We all grew up in an era where we loved sports. And we had those heroes, and we made those heroes bigger than life, and we worshiped those guys as kids. We wanted to own a piece of what they had. I don't know that this younger generation
cares enough about that.
I don't think they care enough about that stuff. I mean, if it's like...
See, I was thinking, you said Ohtani, but I was, and I know Babe Ruth cards out there, but if it wasn't for the rarity of Wagner, what about Babe Ruth's card? Is it not going to ever get to that point?
Because there's way more of them.
Well, the whole thing about the Wagner card is the fact that it came from a tobacco company.
Mm-hmm.
And Honus Wagner was not a fan of tobacco, did not smoke, did not chew, and specifically told that company,
yeah, he didn't want his image.
I don't want my picture in that card set. And so they destroyed a bunch of them.
Yeah.
But some of them got out.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the main reasons, probably the main reason why it's such a valuable card is because
and that's why it's so
there's
little of them.
very few are out there. It's like the whole Mickey Mantle 52 Topps Blueback.
Is that the 311?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They destroyed a bunch of those cards. They literally destroyed a bunch of those cards. And very few of them are still out there today. And if you can find one, especially one that's in mint or near mint condition, I remember collecting.
I feel for certain in a concession stand not much bigger than where we're sitting right here on Hillcrest's ball fields way back in the late 60s and early
Hillcrest.
70s that I probably got Mickey Mantle in that bubble gum and like the dummy I am,
Probably
I probably
stuck in your bicycle spokes.
I probably traded it for a flat tire.
I know some 81 Donruss packs we opened that first year that had 6 Dave McKays and 5 Sixto Lezcanos and
well, I can tell you
just some really bad players, man.
That I had a stack of cards one time in my bedroom at my mom and dad's house that I had dug through and picked out some of my favorites because I was going to take them to school and we were gonna do some swapping and stuff.
You're gonna get 2 pieces of pizza.
And I knew what I had, and it was like George Brett's rookie was in that stack. Cal Ripken Jr.'s rookie was in that stack. There were about 5 premium 80s cards.
Okay, my question to you, why do you go to school when you own these possessions?
Well, yeah. and
what is school to that?
My mother, being the clean freak that she always was, kept telling me to put them baseball cards away or I'm going to throw them away. and she threw them away.
Yeah. I made a swap.
That's why you went to school.
I made a swap one time, and I still don't know to this day because I got the better of it to start with, and then it changed. Depending on the situation. So you tell me.
Jose Canseco involved?
No, I traded a Mark McGwire USA baseball card for a Topps 86 Clemens rookie.
Oh, wow. Out of the traded set.
And you got the worst end of that deal.
I ended up getting the Clemens card.
It's about even now.
Now they're both not in Hall of Fame and disgraced. So
they're
about the same thing.
At the time, I would have taken the Clemens. Would have been the one I would have wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, I've still got. I don't have a whole lot.
That's why I ended up taking.
I still don't. I mean, I've got a binder of old baseball cards over there that ain't worth hardly any. I mean, I've got a couple of rookies over there. There's a Wade Boggs.
Well,
I've got a Michael Jordan sticker card.
For what it's worth, Rusty, you still go to school every day. You could trade
I could
get even here.
I could probably get me a piece of square pizza for a few of those.
As a matter of fact, it was the Fleer set. I think the 87, 88. I saw a kid one time over at Lakeview Junior High back in the day. We were playing basketball. He opened up a 35-cent pack of those cards and pulled out six Michael Jordans.
Wow.
That damn card is worth a couple $1,000.
Oh no, it's worth more than that.
Oh, heard this trivia question the other day. See if you guys can get it. Who hit the first home run in Tampa Bay Devil Rays history?
Oh, Lord.
Prominent person? Somebody people would know, or somebody that's had a cup of coffee and out of there?
I would think either Fred McGriff or Wade Boggs.
What do you think?
Well, first of all, you think of an AL team that could have been there, and I'm going to lean to somebody in the Yankees organization that might have been playing them.
With them or for them?
For them.
Oh, played for the Rays. That's what I'm saying. I'm thinking McGriff or Boggs.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the third baseman that came along after that?
Longoria.
He wouldn't be him.
Yeah.
I don't remember who started with them, to be honest.
It was Wade Boggs.
Was it?
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't remember who started with him.
And then
it was Wade Boggs.
That was right after what was that, 96?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then that was after that short stint he had with the Yankees. Because he got a World Series ring with the Yankees finally. And
so he went from the Yankees to
Tampa Bay, yeah.
To Tampa and got his 3,000th hit?
Yeah, they got him in the they picked him up in the expansion draft because New York didn't protect him.
Because they knew, they were like, hey, he's about to get 3,000 hits.
And Tampa Bay not playing in that facility this year because it took a lot of damage in one of those hurricanes.
That's going to be.
I think they're playing somewhere over around Orlando, maybe.
They're playing in Tampa in Steinbrenner Stadium.
Oh, the spring training.
The Yankee spring training home.
That might actually look like they got a big crowd every game.
They are doing some renovations to it to make it look more like a major league park.
Trying to upgrade it.
Yeah. It doesn't have any protection to the sun, though, right?
No.
And so that's part of the downfall, and they say in the state of Florida is that.
Well, yeah, because you sit there and get baked.
It's too hot.
And that's why people don't go in the first place. So don't do too much renovations for those 2,000 people that are showing up.
Yeah, I don't know what you're going to do about that. That's been a pretty solid organization over the last decade and a half, too.
They have not to have facilities.
Yeah, because I remember going.
But they don't have fan base either.
How many great players have the Devil Rays gotten as rookies, trained them up real good, and then sent them off to somebody else for a multi-million-dollar contract.
You remember when Kansas City won the World Series with those youngsters, and then we knew they couldn't afford any of them as they come into the contract? That last, what you looked at something, you said, man, this might last 4 or 5 years. It didn't last one.
We watched the Florida Marlins do it twice.
It was off.
And they'd sell them all off.
Yeah.
Tampa does, year in and year out, put a good product on there, but without facilities and without a fan base, it seems like they're one of the worst teams in the league.
The first year we saw them, their team motto that year was heart and hustle.
Heart and hustle.
Couldn't think of nothing else.
And they had put pictures of these people, on the little, on the walkway where the light poles were, with the little flag stuff. And I'm like, I've never heard of any of these guys.
I think Atlanta.
Arizona came in same year as them, right? Because both
Arizona and Tampa.
Both of them had those both of them had weird uniforms, had the goofy colors. Because Arizona had the purple and the green and
and Arizona brought some of the purple back.
Yeah, and then Tampa Bay had the big giant because they were the Devil Rays to start with.
They've both gotten away from their uniforms.
Oh yeah, I like the way Arizona went with that darker, that burnt orange color that they have now, or even I guess you'd call that even a maroon red.
Well, now they're kind of spring training. It's kind of like a red.
Lot.
They got some red, some blue, and some black, and it's more like Spanish type colors.
But don't you have some? Don't you have some kind of?
I love that purple, man. That was awesome.
The Braves are killing me with their uniforms.
Don't you like a team that when they lock into their colors, they stay loyal to that?
I do.
I mean, and that's not what Diamondbacks have done. They've run away from their original color scheme.
I'm telling you, everybody can make fun of it all they want to, and there have been some ugly variations of it over the years.
They won a World Series with that. I don't know why they don't try to rally around that more.
But I've always thought one of the best all-time uniforms in Major League Baseball is the Pittsburgh Pirates, just because of how loyal they have stayed to that yellow and black. They've done all kinds of different variations of it, and it always looks good.
They have, and one of my partialities are the early '70s with Clemente in those uniforms. They're not going to. Well, that was a little bit afterwards. They're not going to come back to that look. Because that was that gold, that mustard. Gold that the Pirates
had.
Well,
the A's back in that stretch with that Kelly green.
A's had beautiful uniforms. They really did. And when they changed that Kelly green to that hunter green, I thought, well, that's not even smart on y'all's part to do that. You're loud, be loud. I mean, that's the history of when you. And the funny thing about that, when the A's got to Oakland, they had amazing early success.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're winning World Series really quickly.
Look at those young players they had.
They had a great team.
Catfish Hunter, Reggie Jackson.
They had a great team.
Just
and young guys back in that day.
Oh yeah.
Joe Rudy and Gene Tennis. I think one of the reasons you're not going to see Pittsburgh change too much is because the black and gold
is universal.
It's Pittsburgh colors. I mean, the Steelers, the Penguins, they're all the same.
If they had an NBA team, they'd be black and gold.
Yeah.
Well, and a few years ago, and I don't know if they're still doing this, their Sunday uniform at home was kind of a throwback to those early 70s. I like that look.
They do every once in a while. They bring them back.
The pillbox hats.
They look good. That's a really nice stadium.
I wasn't crazy about that, Rusty. I know they had success in that era too.
They just look
cool. I wasn't crazy about that.
Give me Kent Tekulve in his big giant glasses out there throwing sidearm.
Now I saw this lineup the other day, and I
think
there's
your name, but
that was our All-Star hats. Remember?
Oh yeah.
And we all know that Greg Payne's a huge Big Red Machine fan, and when you see that lineup that won some World Series, when you see them lined up down there, Bench was hitting 7th in that lineup. And when you see that Hall of Fame lineup that just stretches through there, you thought, man, that's cool. And that team hung together a long time too.
That's what a free agency.
It was Rose, Senior Griffey,
George Foster in the outfield.
Well, third base was Morgan. This
Morgan
particular
was
lineup,
second base.
Batting order.
Concepcion,
Rose, Griffey. Perez was hitting 4, Dreesen 5, Foster 6, and Bench 7. Now, how often do you see 6 and 7 that hits the baseball
position.
like that?
Yeah, exactly.
They're two. Geronimo and Concepcion was 8 and 9. They were potential outs in the lineup if you could get that deep with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
But I don't remember that team having the greatest of pitching. But that big red machine hitting team right
Pedro
there,
Bourbon.
they scored some
They
points.
didn't need to, but that
Run,
Pittsburgh offensive lineup with Willie Stargell and Al Oliver and Bill Matlock and
Forgot
Dave
about Al
Parker,
Oliver, Dave Parker.
Young Dave Parker on
yeah.
that team.
Phil Garner,
Phil Garner,
Phil Gar-
Tennessee
young,
Vol.
Young
Yep.
Phil Garner.
Young Phil
Again,
Garner.
I mean,
Tennessee Vol.
Manny Sanguin.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a pretty darn good. Mike Easley was on that
They
team.
don't. I mean, we've got great players and stuff in the
this
modern
is
era
all
of
the
baseball. I know.
baseball card stuff coming back.
But when you go back and
Like
you look
Easler.
at that
It's not
era
Easler,
of
Easler.
baseball, though, like, I mean, you think about Nolan. Nolan Ryan would throw at you because he knew you didn't have the balls to walk out there to that mound because he's going to kick your behind all the way back to the plate. Just ask Robin Ventura,
Hey,
who jumped on a then almost 50-year-old Nolan Ryan.
I'll give Robin Ventura
At
credit
least
to
he
this
had the
day.
stones, man.
Yeah, he wasn't going to be intimidated.
But I mean, you look at, that's the one you look at. Like, I watched that Ryan documentary a while back. But you look at the pitching staff of that '69 Mets team. Seaver,
God,
Nolan was not
and,
the ace on that team.
Kuzman.
Yeah, and it wasn't the one that the surgery's named
Yeah, Tommy
after.
John. Yeah,
Tommy John. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Ryan was not the ace on that
No.
team. It was Seaver.
No, he was like the number 4 guy because
I mean-
they couldn't figure out whether he was going to be a starter or reliever. I think the only reason he wound up in the lineup was because somebody got hurt and they moved him up in the rotation.
There's certain teams, because he jumped around and he does have a lot of strikeouts, but there's certain teams that he's not the leading strikeout person on that team because he didn't stay there long enough. He went somewhere else and struck out a bunch of batters.
I guarantee you he is in Houston, though, because he was there forever.
There, maybe, but there was some arms there with him
That's
too.
true.
Mike Scott
Oh, I forgot about that.
and J.R. Richard.
I think
if
he-
J.R. Richard hadn't
Yeah,
had issues,
He was on a good staff in Texas.
I think he might be. I think he might be the strikeout leader for Texas.
I mean, that's where he threw. Didn't he throw no
Nolan
hitters?
Ryan, yeah.
Didn't he throw no hitter 6 and no hitter 7 with Texas? Yeah. I mean, I remember watching 7 when ESPN. That was one of the first times I ever saw ESPN cut in
and he signed it
like 3 or 4.
But it was such a
44, I think.
it was
it
such
was,
a different era than then and now. And I've heard Glavin and Smoltz even when they're commentating, they'll talk about, well, you're not going to see a whole lot of 20-game winners. You're not going to see a whole lot of guys win 300 because of the formula that they go through now. A starter was considered, if you're a starter, we need 7. Now we're talking 4.
How many times did Bob Gibson come out? There's that one season, and he pitched 9 innings in every start except for like 2.
Yeah,
And in those 2, he pitched 7 or 8.
Well,
yeah.
his numbers are
A
ridiculous.
couple of them were like 11 and 12.
Because when you
Yeah.
start to see how many innings he got to throw,
Yeah.
I mean that's not even the format no more.
Of course, maybe it was because the manager was probably scared to death to go out there and try to
That's
take the
exactly
ball
what it
from
was.
him.
Well, I mean, it's amazing that somebody like that could do that in what was a traditional 4-man rotation back now. Now there's a 5-man rotation. That's part of the reason that they don't think
Didn't
they'll
I
have a
read
300
somewhere that
winner.
like one of the last old timers games he played in, like he hit somebody, like the first batter he faced, he hit him because the last time they played against each other, the guy hit a home run off of
He
him.
hit like a grand slam home
Yeah.
run off of him, and they met each other in an old timers game like 10, 12 years
Yeah.
later, and I'll be damned, Gibson threw at him and hit him.
Well, guys, we want to thank you for tuning in with us. Literally, we could sit and talk classic baseball all night long because it is just something that we all grew up with a tremendous love for. But we thank you guys for tuning in with us. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. If you guys haven't noticed, make sure that you're checking the Scenic City Sports Facebook page because we are putting the links up to get us to YouTube. YouTube just does a whole lot better job of streaming everything. You get to see us in a little bit more high definition. So we'll catch you guys next week. We appreciate you being on with us, and you guys take it easy.
I'm still looking for some gold at the end of my rainbow. Yes, and someday I will find her on the Parkway Blue Blinder.
Someday I will find her.
Yes, and someday I will find her
On the Parkway Blue Blinder.
on the Parkway Blue Blinder.
On the Parkway.
On the Parkway on an autumn day. Yes, and leaves fall like confetti in a New York parade. On the Parkway on an autumn day. Yes, and leaves fall like confetti in a New York parade. In a strange way, I know I care. You and me in truth or dare. So into my love's eyes I stare. Perfect circles in a square. Yes, and some